Can the Rams find yet another player in free agency to go help them win the Super Bowl?
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I need you to subscribe to Locked On Rams, both on your podcast feed and on Locked On Rams on YouTube as well. My name is Travis Rogers. Thanks for checking us out. Now, of course, I do the Rams halftime show, their pregame show, their postgame show, and have since they returned to Los Angeles back in 2016 on their flagship station, ESPN 710. So we're going to get to the big free agent acquisition, potential free agent acquisition in just 1 second. We'll also talk a little bit about what Odell Beckham said about Matthew Stafford. I think that's very good news about his potential return in LA as a destination. And then at the end, believe it or not, we're going to mix in a little Ram-Laker hybrid because there's something going on that I think is very good news for the Rams in their position here in the city. But let's get right to it, right? Let's talk about what the Rams have been able to do in free agency and what they might be able to do this upcoming season. We talked about Russell Wilson leaving Seattle to go to Denver a couple of different times here on the pod this week. The Seahawks also made another move. They released Bobby Wagner, who's one of their all-time great players. Bobby Wagner is probably going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's that good of a player. On the all-decade team, the NFL all-decade team for the 2010s. He's extraordinary. He's fantastic. He also makes a lot of money. So they decided that they're going to go in a different direction. The Seahawks are kind of hitting the reset button. So all of their experienced, expensive players are probably going to be down the road. Bobby Wagner already has been released by the team. So put that over here for a second. Let's talk about what the Rams have been able to do historically, or in recent history, of course, talking about the Sean McVay era and more specifically the Sean McVay, Les Snead era. They'll go get some guys. They will take a chance on a guy, whether it's a Marcus Peters or an Aqib Talib or an Eric Weddle or Clay Matthews or a whole bunch of different guys that they're willing to go in. And Ndamukong Suh. I'm talking about defensive players mostly, but of course we're talking about Odell and some other guys where they see an opportunity and they go and make their pitch and see if they can get that person to come here, maybe towards the end of their career, maybe get the last couple of quality seasons out of that player. We've seen it happen. It's a good strategy. Maybe you can get them on the cheap. You can bring in some leadership, all of the things that a player like Bobby Wagner might be able to provide. Here's the interesting thing. Most of them have hit. Not all of them, but most of them have. Now, let's talk about Bobby Wagner specifically. Now, number one, he's from Southern California. That matters, right? I mean, especially when you've already accomplished what he's accomplished in his career. There's not a lot of empty boxes to check. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame probably. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to the Pro Bowl. All of the things that you would like to do, right? So now you're looking at things that maybe make you a little bit more happy. Maybe things that maybe make your life a little bit easier. Being from Los Angeles can't hurt the Rams, right? That the Rams are the hometown team is a big advantage for him. So maybe that has something to do with it. But I think the biggest thing, and Les Snead talked about this on the Travis and Sliwa show on ESPN 710 a couple of weeks ago about Los Angeles being a destination. Not only have the Rams been very good, not only have they won a lot of games, not only are they the defending Super Bowl champions, but they've put them in a position where players that are in a situation like Bobby Wagner or similar to him, where made most of my money, maybe I got one more deal in me, but I want to make sure that I spend the last few years of my career playing on a good team in a place I want to live. Does that not sound like the perfect recipe for the Los Angeles Rams? Put it to you this way. Are the Chargers that destination? They're not, right? The Chargers are kind of in the middle of whatever it is the Chargers are into. They're not a team that is likely to go compete for a Super Bowl in the next year or two. They're not necessarily a team that is showing they're fully committed to winning the way that the Rams have. They don't have a dynamic head coach in the way that Sean McVay is. You don't have all of the different pieces that say, you know what? Why wouldn't I go there? What's the downside? Now, the option, of course, is that maybe somebody else steps up and offers them a lot of money. Now, what makes it even additionally interesting is that Bobby Wagner serves as his own agent, right? So that can cut both ways. I think where this cuts to the Rams' advantage is you don't have an agent because, look, what are we talking about with agents? Agents are looking to get their players the most possible money, the best deal possible, A, because it's the right thing to do, and B, it's the best thing for them. Right? If I get 10% of whatever you're making, I'd rather you make $2 million than $1 million, right? I'd rather have my 10% on 2 than 10% on 1. So they're always going to have their own agendas involved as well. Bobby Wagner does not have somebody whispering in his ear saying, hey, listen, the Rams offers 80% of what pick a team, the Colts offer might be, right? Why don't we go over there? This is a better financial play for you, more secure, et cetera, et cetera. He doesn't have to worry about chipping off that 10%, right? He gets to keep it himself. He negotiates his own deal. I think that works to the Rams' benefit, that maybe you can offer him something a little bit less, but knowing that he gets to keep all of it probably might, tip it one way or the other if you're on the fence. I don't think it's the difference between him saying, oh, I'll take a lot less from the Rams because I don't have to pay an agent, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are offering me twice the amount of money. They're not going to beat that offer. But everything else being even, everything else being kind of where it is, it's a pretty good fit. And lastly, with regards to Bobby Wagner, they need help at that position. When you look at what the Rams do on defense, they've got the guy up front in Aaron Donald. Leonard Floyd's going to be there. Von Miller may or may not come back. I think it's probably a 50-50 proposition at this point. You've got the guy in the back end in Jalen Ramsey. Now, maybe Jalen is finally starting to show a little bit of wear, and maybe he's not that number one guy that he's been his entire. Maybe he still is. We'll see. It looked like he was kind of off of his game a little bit towards the end of the season, but could have just been a game or two. Time will tell. But what they're missing is that guy in the middle. They've had Ernest Jones. He's a draft pick from a year ago and played pretty well in the opportunities that he was given. Troy Reeder will probably leave. We'll see. Again, he's eligible to go make some money somewhere else. Maybe the Rams can come out with something. But this was a guy that maybe wasn't their best guy at that position on any given day. Maybe that was the weak spot on the defense on any given day. Bobby Wagner fixes that like that. He shows up. This is somebody that's made the Pro Bowl 8 times. This is somebody that is still probably in a very good window as far as his age go. He turns 32 years old in June, so he'll play the upcoming season as a 32-year-old. That's still a very useful age. That's still somewhere you're not going to expect him to start to fade dramatically. He still is an incredibly durable player. He finally missed a game last year after playing in nearly all of them his entire career. This is a guy that knows how to win. This is a guy that, by all accounts, has been somebody that's not difficult to have around. I don't see a lot of downside in bringing Bobby Wagner in if, of course, you can convince him that it's the right fit from a geographic sense, that he's from the Southern California area. It's a good fit in the sense that the Rams need what position he plays, linebacker, right? And then lastly, the Rams offer him everything that he could be looking for, right? Chance to win, chance to play at home, a chance to go and be a starter right away, a chance to go and have an impact on a team that really, if things break the way that they sometimes do, the Rams are going to win that division again, or at least they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to have a chance to go back and compete to go win another Super Bowl. He knows how hard it is to get there. He's been a part of that before, and knowing that you can kind of skip to the front of the line, at least on some of it, has to be appealing in some sense. So Bobby Wagner to LA, certainly a possibility, something to keep your eye on as the new league year opens coming up here in just a little bit more than a week. Okay, so coming up next, I want to talk about a tweet that Odell Beckham sent out about Matthew Stafford and what that might mean for those guys pairing up together moving forward. But first, let's talk about BetOnline, right? It still bums me out that football season's over, but you know what it is. The tournament, the college basketball tournament, it is right around the corner. From all the latest odds, contests, player props, BetOnline is the number one source for all your sports betting need and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your scores, podcasts, and news this season. And I always like to kind of see how these trades work out, right? Carson Wentz will go from Indianapolis to the Commanders. What does it change the odds? Nothing. How about that, Carson Wentz? You changed the odds of your new team by 0. Good job there. You can find out information like that at BetOnline. It's not just the football stuff. It's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head on over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thanks again for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL. Locked On NFL experts covering the biggest stories around the league every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. And it, too, is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, so sometimes you've got that pairing between quarterback and wide receiver that just clicks, bam, right away, right? Like Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford spent a lot of time in the offseason. They talked about their breakfast meetings, all that stuff. Those guys were clearly on the same page, but it took them a minute, right? It took them a camp. It took them the breakfast that we've talked about, all those extra hours that they put in after practice. And certainly a great deal of output was the result, right? You go and you win the Super Bowl. He's the MVP. Matthew Stafford wins his first championship, all of these things. Well, Odell didn't have the luxury of working with Matthew Stafford during an offseason and everything leading up to his trade from the Broncos, or I should say the acquisition from the Browns, I should say, about the middle of last season, right? So the body of work between Odell Beckham Jr. and Matthew Stafford is much smaller than the body of work between Stafford and the guys that were there all season long. But this is what OBJ tweeted earlier this week. Stafford is the real deal. I don't think he gets much talked about, or I should say, I don't think much gets talked about that, but being there and seeing this stuff up close, I cleaned it up there for you, Odell. Dude is truly different. No cap. He's got the little cap emoji. And yes, I did have to consult exactly what the no cap meant along the way. But I think it's really interesting. This is a guy who has not been particularly effusive in his praise of quarterbacks throughout his career. And yet here he is after playing, a handful of games, obviously an incredibly successful handful of games for him, and going out of his way to say, no, you guys don't get what this guy is all about. You don't understand just how good of a player he is. And I think he's right? I think he is absolutely right. They played 12 games together, okay, including the playoffs. Matthew Stafford and Odell Beckham Jr. played 12 games together. 7 touchdowns in 12 games. That's unbelievable. Okay. 21 of 28 targets for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns during the playoffs. Let me say that again. 21 of 26 targets. He caught the ball for 288 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a touchdown in the Super Bowl before he got hurt right before the end of the first half. Okay. These are unbelievable numbers. These are numbers that lead you to believe that if this is what it looks like with them just having a few months together, what'll it look like if you have an entire offseason together? What'll it look like if you have an entire season together? What if you can put these guys together for an extended period of time? Does it look a lot like Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford? It might. It really might. I also think it's incredibly good news that he's talking about this, because I think all indications are that he's going to come back and that he wants to. I think Stafford understands how to use him. Sean McVay understands how to use him. And even more importantly than that, Beckham has their respect. Right? That they understand that he can help them, and they understand that he can help them, and that this is a two-way street. And that makes a huge difference. Before in Cleveland with Odell, and I'll be honest, when they made the acquisition for him, I thought, okay, we'll see. We'll see how that shakes. I don't know how much great football he left is in him. Well, he hasn't been a very particular player in the last few years. We'll see what it shakes out as. It shook out pretty damn good. And now all of a sudden, he's talking about Matthew Stafford. I don't think anybody understands how good this blank is. I think he's right about that. Stafford was still, even after putting together a division championship winner, they were 12-5 during the regular season. This is a very, very good team that won a whole bunch of games, but it was still this, we'll see. And then they beat Arizona. Yeah, Arizona's not very good. Okay. Then he single-handedly almost beats the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Right? That if without him, they don't win that game. And then he just goes absolutely off in the NFC Championship game to help them beat the one team they couldn't beat all season long, the San Francisco 49ers. They lose that game without him. And then we know what happened in the Super Bowl on that final drive. Him and Kupp just going down, connecting, scoring, winning, championship. All of that. And there's still this, great season. He's a really good player. Maybe he's a little bit better than we thought, but we're not talking about him the way that people talk about Aaron Rodgers. You don't talk about him the way that people talk, even about Russell Wilson to a certain degree, right? When he made them, the Broncos are all of a sudden they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Well, maybe, but Russell Wilson isn't a better quarterback than Matthew Stafford at this point. Look around. How many guys would you trade straight up for Matthew Stafford? Rodgers, probably, right? Maybe Mahomes. Okay. Maybe you look at a guy like Josh Allen, and now you're into that. Well, maybe. I'd have to think about it for a minute, but that's probably the list, right? Some of the other guys, Joe Burrow. No, I'm not trading Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford for Joe Burrow. And this is, I think, is what Odell was getting at. That this is not just a guy that's out there running around, throwing passes, hoping to do this and got hot at the right moment. The second they put him on a good team, the second they put him with a good coach, he was off to the races and won a championship. Odell sees it. I think the Rams fans have seen it, but I don't know around the rest of the league if they're giving him the respect that he deserves after playing the season that he did, in particular in the postseason, when that's all anybody was saying mattered anyway. They start 7-1, regular season. He always does well in the regular season, or we'll see how they do the playoffs. They have a little bit of hiccup. See, Jared Goff 2.0. Told you he throws a bunch of interceptions. Yeah, he throws a few. he also did some stuff in that game, in the playoff games, that there aren't three other guys in the league that could have pulled off. And he pulled it off. That no-look pass, the further you get away from it to Kupp during that final drive is one of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my life. And he did it under the greatest pressure that a person could have it in, and it was perfect. That tells me all I need to know about that dude. Odell gets it. I know Kupp gets it. Rams fans are going to get it. But I wonder if they can make another run next year if a tweet like that from Odell Beckham doesn't resonate a lot more. And when we're talking about the best quarterbacks in the league, if he's not on that short list. Maybe not Mahomes, maybe not Rodgers, but everyone else, I think I'm going to keep Matthew Stafford. Odell Beckham, I think, will probably agree with me on that one. Okay, coming up in just a little bit, going to go to the Lakers for a second because I think there's something happening with the Rams that's very, very important for them in their position here in Los Angeles. Okay, so obviously the Rams are your Super Bowl champions, and everybody's very excited about that. The baseball season is kind of on hold, right? We're waiting to see when the Dodgers finally click in and they get going again. And then the Lakers, of course, are having arguably one of their most disappointing seasons ever. Couple of the highlights of the Lakers season have been interesting. Both of them directly related to the Rams, believe it or not. The Lakers season is a bust, right? If they even make the play-in tournament, they won't get out of it. And if they do, they're going to run into a very good, I don't even think they get in after losing to the Rockets the way they did the other night. That's better conversation for Locked On Lakers. What up, Andy and Brian? But the two highlights we've seen, really, maybe, let me rephrase, maybe the only two highlights that we've seen about the Lakers the last 3 or 4 weeks, both involve the Rams. Aaron Donald goes to the Laker game the night that the championship parade was at the Coliseum, right? Day starts with Aaron Donald squirting champagne and taking his shirt off and to having a speech in front of the Coliseum and everybody going crazy and him, run it back with Sean McVay and all that. And then that very night he went on James Corden, I think, on CBS Late Night. Then that night he goes to the Laker game. I forget who the Lakers are playing, but his presence was amazing. Like he gets up to walk down to go get a drink or whatever. The place goes wild. Now you get it, like, okay, it's the day of the parade. It's front of mind. The Super Bowl just happened the weekend previously. And so seeing Aaron Donald is going to be very, very exciting. But it wasn't just the fans seeing Aaron Donald going, wow, Aaron Donald, Rams, Super Bowl champion. This is great. It was the players on the Lakers. LeBron went out of his way to talk about Aaron Donald. LeBron went out of his way to kind of make sure that he knew, that I know, that you know, that I know, that kind of deal, right? The greatness recognizes greatness. And everybody was incredibly thrilled to see Aaron Donald. LeBron James and the Laker players included. The Crypto.com arena, stupid name, was very, very excited to just have him in the building. And I kind of chalked it up to, all right, they just won Super Bowl a couple of days before, and it's Aaron Donald, right? Aaron Donald is a very, very famous person. Even if you're just a casual sports fan, you know who Aaron Donald is. So I get it. Kind of just put it aside. Well, let's fast forward to what happened this most recent weekend with the Warriors, where the Lakers finally found a way to win another game, haven't won one since. But they beat the Warriors. And LeBron has 56 points in that game. Who was in the crowd at that game? Matthew Stafford and his wife. LeBron goes over there and does the same thing, right? Like, hey, I see you. I know you. I know how important you are to that team. I know what you did as a champion. Greatness recognizes greatness. And you could see Stafford was like, wow, I'm having a moment with LeBron James. It was really cool. But you could see the buzz in the crowd. You can see the way that LeBron responds to these guys. This is such good news for the Rams. This is such an incredibly valuable moment for the Rams to seize on and start to develop. Because, look, the Lakers are a terrible team this year, but they're still King Kong in this city, right? It is the Lakers, the Dodgers, and then there's some room, and then there's everybody else. And the Rams are trying to put themselves up into that category with the Lakers and the Dodgers. When they get to go to those games and the people react to them the way that we saw them react to Aaron Donald, the way that we saw them react to Matthew Stafford, the way you see the Laker players respond to him, that's really good news. People are excited. I put it to you this way. Justin Herbert comes to the game. You getting that response? Mike Williams comes to the game. Are you getting that response? Bosa comes to that game. Are you getting that response? First of all, I think if you put Joey Bosa up on or is it Nick? Whatever one's on the Chargers. The Bosa brothers get me confused. They're both on the West. Anyway, put Bosa up on the screen. People are like, huh? Who? Oh, Chargers? Yeah. Oh, yeah, hey, cool. Right? Remember when they booed Paul George when they put him on the screen at SoFi? I don't know if they boo him because I don't even think they know who the Bosa is. You put Stafford up there, you put Donald up there, people are getting fired up. I think this is the kind of stuff that I think the Rams have to seize on. Send Cooper Kupp to some games. Send Andrew Whitworth to some games. Let's get some ambassadorship going. Just front and center. Seize the moment as the winner in this town. Really jump up and down and say, hey, look, we're here. We're the best team in football right now. We've got star players. Come and enjoy us. Come and enjoy what it is that we're doing. Go to Dodger games. Go to Kings games, Ducks games, whatever it might be. Go out there and do it. Get out in front of it and stay front and center in people's mind, because even after a couple of weeks have gone by, look, we're sports fans and we move on to the next thing pretty quickly. So once football's over, unless you're a diehard and you're going through draft and combine and listening to Locked On Rams and things like that, by the way, click that subscribe button. Appreciate that. You're probably thinking, okay, it's Lakers, it's Dodgers, it's Angels, whatever team you want to watch. Oh yeah, right, Matthew Stafford. Yeah, the Rams did have. We gotta go check the Rams out. I'm gonna grab that hat. I'm gonna grab that team, whatever it might be, front and center, because the Lakers win, lose, and lose and lose. They're always going to be at the front of the line.